We start the day's other headlines in Washington. The Pentagon says that National Guard troops will soon start carrying firearms as part of President Trump's security crackdown of the city. The new policy comes as nearly 2,000 National Guard members are currently stationed in the nation's capital. Just last week, the Pentagon said troops would not carry guns. Officials did not provide any reason for the change. In the Oval Office this afternoon, President Trump claimed the city's Democratic mayor had not done enough to keep Washington safe.
Mayor Bowser better get her act straight or she won't be mayor very long, because we'll take it over with the federal government, run it like it's supposed to be run.
President Trump also said today that he would expand the federal policing of America's cities, saying that Chicago could be next, though it's unclear how that would play out since the federal government has unique authority in Washington as opposed to elsewhere in the country. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth fired the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency today. A spokesperson confirmed to the NewsHour that Lieutenant General Jeffrey Cruz is no longer the director of the DIA. An initial leaked DIA assessment had found that the U.S. strikes on Iran's 3 main nuclear sites in June had only set back the country's nuclear capabilities by a few months. That contradicted comments from President Trump, who claimed the sites had, quote, been obliterated. Cruz is also just the latest high-level military official fired since the start of the Trump administration. President Trump announced this afternoon that the federal government has taken a 10% stake in Intel. Writing on social media, Mr. Trump said that the U.S. paid nothing for the shares, adding that building leading-edge semiconductors and chips, which is what Intel does, is fundamental to the future of our nation. The government had been in talks over taking a stake in the struggling chip maker in exchange for converting government grants that had been promised under President Biden. Few details have been provided, but it would be among the largest government interventions in a U.S. company since the 2008 financial crisis. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was released from jail in Tennessee today to be with his family in Maryland as he awaits trial on human smuggling charges. The Salvadoran national was mistakenly deported by the Trump administration earlier this year. He was detained on criminal charges upon his court-ordered return. Abrego Garcia's attorneys had recommended that he be kept in jail over fears the Trump administration would deport him again. But a recent court ruling will allow him time to challenge any deportation order. Abrego Garcia has pleaded not guilty to the smuggling charges. Florida is appealing a federal court ruling that would effectively shut down the immigrant detention center the Trump administration has dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. A U.S. District Court judge issued a preliminary injunction late yesterday saying the facility does not comply with environmental laws. It requires a halt to further expansion of the 2-month-old center and the winding down of operations within 60 days. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said today the ruling was made unfairly by an activist judge and that he remains committed to the mission in carrying out deportations. Russia's top diplomat Sergei Lavrov says there's no meeting planned between Vladimir Putin and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky. The comments to NBC News mark a clear setback after President Trump said he'd begun arrangements for the two leaders to meet. But then today at that Oval Office event, Mr. Trump, after showing off a photo of himself and Putin, said he'll know in 2 weeks whether progress is possible on ending the war. He also floated the idea of more sanctions, if not. For his part, Zelensky met with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte in Kyiv to discuss security guarantees. Ukraine is seeking such commitments from Western allies to strengthen its hand in dealing with Russia and provide long-term security. The Kremlin has knocked down any discussion of security guarantees without Russia. Zelensky says Moscow is trying to hide from face-to-face engagement.
Now, we see that the Russians are doing everything to prevent the meeting. Ukraine, unlike Russia, is not afraid of any meetings between leaders. The Russians will try to do something else now to avoid a meeting. The issue is not the meeting. The issue is that they don't want to end the war.
Zelensky went on to say that really strong sanctions would be needed to force Russia to engage in diplomacy. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says his government will drop all its retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods specifically covered under the United States-Mexico-Canada Trade Pact, or USMCA. The Trump administration recently did the same for Canadian goods that were compliant with the 2020 Free Trade Agreement. It marks a major thawing of trade tensions between the neighboring nations. though Canadian tariffs on U.S. steel, aluminum, and cars will remain for now. In a press conference today, Carney said today's actions will help to reset trade talks between the two countries.
Canada and the United States have reestablished free trade for the vast majority of our goods. Canada currently has the best trade deal with the United States. And while it's different from what we had before, it is still better than that of any other country.
A White House official called Carney's decision a welcome move by Canada and one that was long overdue. The USMCA itself is up for review next year. On Wall Street today, stocks surged after Fed Chair Jerome Powell hinted that interest rate cuts are coming. The Dow Jones Industrial Average jumped nearly 850 points to a new record high. The Nasdaq added almost 400 points. The S&P 500 broke a 5-session losing streak, adding nearly 100 points. Still to come on the NewsHour, we speak with the pastor leading the boycott of Target for its rollback of diversity policies. And Jonathan Capehart and Ramesh Ponnuru weigh in on the week's political headlines.
This is the PBS NewsHour from the David M. Rubenstein studio at WETA in Washington and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.